I can still feel the weight of my family's expectations pressing down on me as I prep for my launch party. This isn't just any party. It's the culmination of years of hard work, late nights, and sacrifices. I've put everything into this business, and yet, as I stand in my living room, surrounded by balloons and banners, I can't shake the feeling of dread creeping in. My siblings Emily and Mark have always taken advantage of my kindness, treating me like a doormat they can wipe their feet on whenever it suits them. Just the other day I overheard them in the kitchen, laughing and whispering. I couldn't hear everything, but the words sabotage and failure floated through the air like a dark cloud. They were plotting, I just knew it. I've always been the one who supports their dreams, the one who cheers the loudest at their accomplishments, but when it comes to me their attitude shifts. They see my success not as something to celebrate, but as a threat. The closer I get to the launch date, the more I feel the pressure. I've invested my savings into this venture, and the thought of them undermining everything I've worked for fills me with anxiety. I think back to all the times they dismissed my ideas, how they always seemed to overshadow my accomplishments. It's like there's an unspoken rule in our family. I'm supposed to support them without ever expecting anything in return. Well, that's about to change. With just a week to go, I can't let them ruin this for me. I have to confront them to stand up for what's mine. I know it won't be easy, but I can't let their jealousy dictate my future any longer. I refuse to let them steal my hard-earned moment. It's my time to shine, and I won't let them dim my light. Looking back, I can see the pattern so clearly. Emily and Mark have always been the favorites in our family, and I've spent too many years in their shadows. Growing up, it was always about them. Emily was the star athlete, winning trophies and accolades, while Mark was the charismatic one, charming everyone with his quick wit. And then there was me, just Sarah, the steady, dependable sister who was always there to pick up the pieces when they needed help. I remember the times I poured my heart into projects, only to have them brushed aside. Like that time I organized a fundraiser for the local animal shelter. I had put so much effort into it, but when Emily decided to host her own event, suddenly my hard work was forgotten. Everyone raved about Emily's party, and I stood in the background, wondering if anyone even remembered I had tried to do something good. Or the time I graduated college. I was proud of my degree. I thought my family would celebrate this achievement with me. Instead, Mark announced his engagement that same weekend. All the attention shifted to him, and I was left standing there, smiling through the disappointment as everyone fussed over his wedding plans. It wasn't just about the events, though. It was the little things that chipped away at my self-esteem. The casual remarks they'd make, comparing me to them, as if I was always lacking something. Sarah, why don't you try harder like Emily? Or if you were more like Mark, maybe you'd get more recognition. Those words stung, but I brushed them off, convincing myself that any attention was better than none. But the reality hit me as I prepared for my launch. Emily and Mark have never seen me as an equal. They see me as someone who exists to support their narratives, their successes. And now that I'm stepping into the spotlight with my own business, they're threatened. I can feel it in the way they talk about my venture, as if it's something to be mocked rather than celebrated. The financial strain of this launch weighs heavily on me. I've put my savings into this business, taking a leap of faith that I can make it work. I've had to sacrifice vacations and new clothes, all while they seem to glide through life without a care. They don't understand what it's like to invest everything into a dream, to feel the weight of expectations resting solely on your shoulders. As the launch date approaches, I can sense their jealousy bubbling just beneath the surface. I know they're hoping I'll fail. It would validate their own choices and make them feel better about their own lives. But I refuse to give them that satisfaction. I can't let their negativity creep into my mind and sabotage what I've built. This time it's different. I've worked too hard to let them undermine me. I've poured my heart and soul into this business, and I deserve to stand tall, to know that I can succeed on my own terms. I deserve to be celebrated, not just as the supportive sister, but as someone with dreams and ambitions of her own. With just a week until the launch, I know I need to confront them. I can't let their dismissive attitudes and backhanded comments go unchallenged any longer. This is my moment. I will not allow them to overshadow my achievements any further. I have to draw a line in the sand and make it clear that I won't be their doormat anymore. I can feel the urgency rising within me. There's no time to waste. I need to find the courage to confront them, to stand up for what's mine. I can no longer accept being the one who supports their dreams while mine are pushed aside. It's time for me to take control of my narrative and make my mark. The thought of their reaction fills me with a mix of anxiety and determination, but I know that if I don't speak up now, I might never have the chance again. This is my business, my dream, and I refuse to let anyone take that away from me. At our usual family dinner, I decided it was time to confront Emily and Mark. The table was set, and the smell of my mother's famous lasagna filled the air, but I could hardly taste it. My heart raced as I watched them joke and laugh, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I took a deep breath, and as I picked up my fork, it felt heavier than usual, like it was weighing down my resolve. "Can we talk about my business for a minute?" I finally blurted out, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions. The laughter faded, and Emily raised an eyebrow, while Mark leaned back in his chair, arms crossed defensively. "What's there to talk about?" Emily replied, her tone dismissive. "You mean that little project of yours?" I felt my blood boil, but I pressed on. "It's not a little project, Emily. I've put everything into this. I need you to support me, not tear me down." Mark scoffed, shaking his head. "Support you? You mean like how you supported us all those years? Seriously, Sarah, you think we're just going to sit around and cheer for you while you try to take the spotlight?" Their dismissive laughter stung, but I kept my composure. "I'm not asking for your approval. I'm asking for basic respect. You both have always overshadowed my accomplishments. It's like you can't stand to see me succeed." Emily's expression shifted from amusement to annoyance. "Oh please. You're being dramatic. We just want you to be realistic. Business isn't for everyone, you know." My heart sank as I realized the depths of their contempt. It was like they thrived on my fears and insecurities. Realistic? I've invested my savings into this. I've sacrificed a lot, and you know it. I felt my voice rising, but I held on to my determination. Mark leaned forward, his face twisted in mock sympathy. "You're right, Sarah. You've sacrificed a lot. But maybe you should have thought twice before jumping into this. It's not our fault you're setting yourself up for failure." The final blow came when I overheard them whispering as they thought I wasn't listening. "I heard she's been talking to investors, but nobody takes her seriously. They think she's delusional." My stomach dropped as I realized they were spreading rumors to potential investors, trying to undermine my credibility before I even got started. I felt like I was drowning, and everything in me screamed to fight back. "You two have no idea how hard I've worked for this. I'm done being the family doormat. You can't keep putting me down and expect me to just take it." Emily laughed mockingly. "Oh boo-hoo, Sarah. It's not our fault you can't handle a little criticism. Maybe you should think about whether this is really for you." In that moment it became painfully clear. They were not going to take me seriously. They were not going to see me as an equal. I felt disposable, like I was nothing but a pawn in their game. I took a deep breath, and instead of letting the humiliation wash over me, I made a decision. I was going to stand up for myself no matter the cost. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor, and looked at them both. "If you're going to continue to undermine me and sabotage my efforts, I will have to cut ties with you. I won't let you ruin this for me. I deserve better." Their laughter turned into confusion and then anger. "You think you can just walk away from us?" Mark shouted, his face red with fury. "You owe us, Sarah." "Owe you? For what exactly? Being a punching bag?" I shot back, feeling empowered by my own words. Emily's face twisted in rage. "You're the one ruining family ties here. You're ungrateful." But I kept my ground. I felt the pressure of their expectations, but I knew I had to draw a line. I had to protect my hard work and my dreams. This was my venture, and I would not let them take it away from me. As I left the dinner table, I felt a mix of fear and relief. I had finally said what needed to be said, but I could sense the repercussions looming. I knew they would not take this lightly. They would lash out, and I would have to brace myself for what was to come. But I was ready. This was my moment to reclaim my narrative, to stop being the supportive sister, and start being the woman I was meant to be. I would not let them steal my thunder any longer. That night, as I lay in bed, my mind raced with everything that had just happened. My heart was still pounding from the confrontation, but deep down, I felt a strange sense of liberation. I had finally voiced my frustrations, and while I was scared of the fallout, I knew that I had to set clear boundaries with Emily and Mark. They had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let them trample my dreams anymore. The next day, I decided to reach out to them again. I wanted to be firm but calm. I knew that I had to convey my limits clearly, without letting their inevitable backlash shake my resolve. So I sent them a message. I want to meet and talk about our last conversation. I need you both to understand that your behavior is unacceptable. If you continue to undermine my business or try to sabotage my efforts, I will have to cut ties with you. This is my venture, and I need your support, not your negativity. I hit send and felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. Would they take me seriously this time? Would they laugh it off again? But I had to stand firm. I refused to be the sibling who was always there to support their dreams while mine were pushed aside. I prepared myself for their response. Sure enough, it came swiftly, just as I expected. Emily wrote back first, her words dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, Sarah, you're being so dramatic. We're just looking out for you because we care. You're not going to succeed on your own, and you know it. Why can't you just let us help you? It's a family business after all." Mark chimed in next, echoing Emily's sentiments. "Yeah, sis, you're in over your head. You can't just cut us off and expect to make it. You should be grateful we even care enough to say anything. You're the one ruining this family." Their responses only fueled my determination. I wasn't going to let their guilt trips work on me this time. I took a deep breath and replied, "This isn't about family loyalty. It's about respect. I've invested everything into this and I need to do it on my terms. I'm not asking for your approval, but I won't accept your sabotage either." I put my phone down and felt a sense of calm wash over me. I knew I had to stick to my word no matter how they reacted. I wasn't going to be the one who folded under pressure anymore. As the launch date approached, I could feel the tension building. Emily and Mark ramped up their attempts to guilt me into inviting them to be part of my business. They called me, texting me relentlessly, trying to convince me that it was a family affair, and that I needed to include them. "Come on, Sarah. You wouldn't want to abandon your family now, would you? We're just looking out for you," Emily pleaded over the phone. I could sense their desperation. They feared losing control over my success, and I wasn't going to let them manipulate me anymore. I kept reminding myself of the sacrifices I had made and how far I had come. I wasn't about to let them ruin this for me. I stood firm in my decision. I knew I had worked too hard to let them dictate my future, and I felt a sense of pride in my resolve. I could see how they were trying to turn my success into a family event, but I was determined to keep it separate. The night before the launch party, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. My hard work was about to pay off, and I was ready to show the world what I had built. But I also knew I had to brace myself for Emily and Mark's reaction. I could feel their energy shifting as they prepared to make their move at the event. I recalled how they had always tried to manipulate situations to their advantage, and I was ready for it this time. I wasn't going to let them steal my spotlight or undermine my efforts. I had to stay focused and remember my worth. The next day, as I put the final touches on the event, I felt a surge of confidence. I knew this was my moment to shine, and I wouldn't let them dim my light. I had set my limits and I was ready to protect my hard work. As I looked around at the decorations and the guests arriving, I felt a sense of pride wash over me. I had created this and I was excited to share it with the world. But deep down, I knew that I had to be prepared for whatever Emily and Mark had planned. I wouldn't let them ruin my hard-earned moment, and I was ready to defend my business with everything I had. As the launch party drew closer, the pressure from Emily and Mark became unbearable. I could feel their looming presence like a dark cloud hovering over my excitement. They were relentless, trying to guilt me into inviting them to be a part of my business, and their emotional blackmail was starting to wear me down. "You know, Sarah, family is everything. You wouldn't want to abandon your family now, would you?" Emily said, her voice sweet yet laced with an unmistakable undertone of threat. She was pressing all the right buttons, trying to pull at my heartstrings. Mark chimed in, adding fuel to the fire. "We've always supported you, even when you didn't notice. You can't just cut us out of your life, especially now that you're launching something big. We're only looking out for you, sis. This is a family affair after all." I felt my stomach twist in knots. It was the same old routine. They were trying to manipulate me, using guilt as their weapon. But I couldn't let them control my narrative any longer. They were terrified of my success, and their desperation was palpable. I remembered all the times I had sacrificed my own happiness for theirs, always being the supportive sister while they basked in the spotlight. I had put my savings into this business, and I wasn't about to let them ride on my coattails. They were trying to downplay my achievements, insisting that this was just another phase I would eventually abandon. Look, I appreciate your concern, but I need to do this on my own terms. I'm not asking for your permission or support in the way you're offering it. I need to stand on my own 2 feet, and that means keeping you both out of this venture, I told them firmly during one of our conversations. Their reactions were exactly what I expected. Emily scoffed at my words, dismissing my feelings with a wave of her hand. You're being ridiculous, Sarah. We just want to help you. If you're so determined to do this alone, fine. But don't expect us to cheer for you when you fail. Mark added, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Yeah, because clearly you know what's best for you. You've always been the slow one in the family. Maybe you should reconsider your options. Each remark stung, but I refused to let them break my resolve. I reminded myself of the sacrifices I had made. The late nights, the financial strain, the constant self-doubt. I had poured everything into this business, and I wasn't going to let their negativity creep in and sabotage my hard work. Their attempts at emotional manipulation only fueled my determination. I knew I had to stay strong and keep my focus on the launch. They wanted to maintain control over me, to ensure that I remained the supportive sister while they took center stage. But this time the tables were turned. As the launch date approached, I could feel the tension escalating. Emily and Mark were relentless, trying to guilt me into including them in my business plans. They would call and text, pushing their agenda, insisting I needed their help. You should at least give us a chance to be involved, Sarah. We could bring in some contacts that could help your business, Emily said, her tone now shifting to a more calculated pitch as she sensed my resistance. We're family and family sticks together, right? Mark added, his voice dripping with false sincerity. But I could see right through their facade. I knew they were desperate to maintain their grip on my success, and I was not going to let them manipulate me any longer. I had to remind myself that this was my journey, not theirs. I stood firm in my decision. I was determined to keep my business separate from their toxic influence. I had worked too hard to let them dictate my success. I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me as I realized how far I had come. In the days leading up to the launch, I focused on preparing for the event, pouring all my energy into making it a success. I envisioned the moment I would stand in front of my guests, proud of what I had built. I was ready to showcase my hard work to the world, and I intended to do it without my siblings' interference. As the day of the launch arrived, I felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. This was my moment, and I couldn't let Emily and Mark's negativity overshadow it. I reminded myself of all the sacrifices I had made, the sleepless nights spent planning and organizing. I was ready to show everyone what I was capable of achieving on my own. But deep down, I knew I had to prepare for their inevitable backlash. I could sense their energy shifting as they prepared to make their move during the event. I was ready to defend my hard work and protect my business from their attempts to undermine me. This was my moment to shine, and I wasn't going to let anyone steal my spotlight. I had set my limits, and I was determined to protect my business from any further manipulation. This time I was in control, and I would not allow them to dictate my success any longer. As the launch party began, I could feel the undercurrent of tension in the air, like a storm brewing just beneath the surface. The venue was beautifully decorated, and I had poured every ounce of my energy into making it perfect. But my excitement was overshadowed by the looming presence of Emily and Mark. I knew they had something planned, and I felt the weight of their scrutiny as I mingled with guests and investors. Just as I was starting to enjoy the moment, I spotted them in the corner, whispering to each other with malicious smiles on their faces. My heart raced as I realized they were plotting something to undermine my efforts. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were waiting for the perfect opportunity to pounce, and I had to be ready. During the event, I watched them move through the crowd, charming guests and trying to manipulate the narrative about my business behind my back. They were working their magic, playing the roles of supportive siblings while secretly plotting to sabotage my launch. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting for a moment of weakness. Then it happened. As I was giving a brief speech to thank everyone for coming, Emily decided to interrupt. Sarah, can we talk about your business decisions in front of everyone? I think it's important that everyone understands what a risky venture this is, she said, her voice dripping with feigned concern. The room fell silent and all eyes turned to me. My heart sank as I realized their plan to embarrass me was in full swing. Mark chimed in, adding, "Yeah, I mean, how can we trust you with our family's name if you're making decisions that could lead to disaster?" Their words were laced with accusation, and I could see the smirks on their faces, relishing the moment. But instead of crumbling under their attack, I took a deep breath and gathered my composure. I wasn't going to let them steal my moment or undermine my hard work. I looked around the room and saw the concerned faces of my guests and investors, and I knew I had to act decisively. I appreciate your concern, but I assure you I've done my research and am fully committed to the success of this venture. This is my dream, and I won't let anyone undermine it. Especially not my own family, I said, my voice steady and calm. As I spoke, I could feel the energy shift in the room. Guests began to murmur to each other, some nodding in agreement with my stance. I decided to take it a step further. In fact, I have evidence of the support I've received from industry professionals, and I'd be happy to share that with everyone here today. With that, I pulled out my phone and displayed the messages and emails from investors and mentors who believed in my vision. I could see Emily and Mark's faces fall as the tide turned against them. I knew I had struck a nerve, exposing their jealousy and manipulation for all to see. The atmosphere shifted dramatically, and I could feel the crowd rallying behind me. Their attempts to humiliate me had backfired, and now they were left scrambling to regain control. Emily's facade cracked, and I could see her frustration boiling beneath the surface, while Mark shifted uncomfortably, unable to find words to refute my evidence. As I continued to speak, I felt a surge of confidence. I shared my vision for the business, my plans for growth, and the hard work I had put into making it happen. I could see the investors leaning in, captivated by my passion and determination. I was no longer the doormat they could walk all over. I was a force to be reckoned with. The more I spoke, the more empowered I felt. I could see the discomfort on Emily and Mark's faces as they realized they had lost their grip on the narrative. They were no longer the ones in control, and the audience could see through their manipulation. As I wrapped up my speech, I looked directly at my siblings, making sure they knew I had taken my stand. I'm grateful for the lessons I learned from my family, but I refuse to let anyone dictate my path or undermine my success. This is my journey, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. The applause from the guests was deafening, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I had faced my fears head-on and emerged victorious. I had not only defended my business but had also reclaimed my power. Emily and Mark were left speechless. Their plan to humiliate me had failed, and the tide had shifted in my favor. As the evening went on, I made sure to engage with my guests, enjoying the positive energy surrounding me. I could feel the distance growing between myself and my siblings, and it felt liberating. I had taken a stand, and in doing so, I had protected my dreams from their toxic influence. The launch party was a success, and I knew that I had made a pivotal decision to break free from the chains of their manipulation. I felt a sense of peace wash over me, knowing that I no longer had to cater to their needs or emotions. This was my moment, and I was finally in control of my own narrative. In that moment of clarity, I decided to let the chaos happen. Instead of reacting to their provocations, I took a deep breath and centered myself. I was done playing their games, and I was ready to show everyone, including myself, that I was more than just the supportive sister who always bent over backward for them. As the tension in the room thickened, I felt the eyes of my guests on me, waiting to see how I would handle this unexpected assault. Emily and Mark thought they had me cornered, but I was ready to flip the script. I could feel the adrenaline surging through my veins, and I wasn't about to let their negativity overshadow the hard work I had put into this launch. I looked directly at the crowd, allowing a moment of silence to settle in before addressing the investors and guests who had come to support me. Thank you all for being here today. I truly appreciate your presence and your belief in my vision. However, it seems my family has some concerns they'd like to address, so I welcome the opportunity to clarify things. I could see the surprise on Emily's face as I turned the tables on her. She was ready for me to collapse under pressure, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me falter. Instead, I took control of the situation. Emily, if you think my decisions are questionable, let's talk about them. I've done my homework, and I believe in what I'm doing. I've worked hard to get to this point, and I'm not going to let anyone, not even my family, undermine that. The crowd murmured in agreement, and I could see support starting to build as they realized I wasn't going to let my siblings dictate the narrative. The moment felt electric, and I leaned into that energy. I continued, I'm proud of what I've accomplished, and I'm confident in my plans for the future. If you have concerns, I'm open to discussing them constructively, but I won't tolerate any further attempts to sabotage my efforts. With that, I decided to go further. I pulled out my phone and displayed the messages I had received from various investors, mentors, and professionals who supported my venture. I had saved them for this exact moment, and I wasn't about to let my hard work be dismissed. Here are the communications I've had with people who believe in this business, people who have invested their time and resources in my vision. I hope you can understand that I'm not in this alone, despite what you may think. The room grew silent as I showcased the proof of my dedication and the support I had garnered. I watched as Emily and Mark exchanged nervous glances, their facades starting to crack under the weight of the truth. It felt liberating to expose their jealousy right in front of everyone. As I looked around the room, I could see the investors leaning in, interested in what I had to say. I felt the momentum shift in my favor. I continued, this isn't just a whim for me. I've invested my savings, my time, and my passion into this business. I'm committed to making it work, and I won't allow anyone to undermine that commitment, especially not my own family. With each word, I could feel my confidence growing. I was no longer the timid sister who let others walk all over her. I was standing up for myself, and I was reclaiming my narrative. The energy in the room shifted, and I could sense the crowd rallying behind me as they began to see the truth behind my siblings' manipulation. Emily and Mark were visibly uncomfortable, their plan to humiliate me backfiring spectacularly. I saw the discomfort etched on their faces as my evidence spoke louder than their hollow accusations. The more I spoke, the more empowered I felt, and the more isolated they became in their own web of deceit. As I wrapped up my presentation, I addressed the audience directly. I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned from my family, but I refuse to let their negativity dictate my path. This is my journey, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. I hope you all see that my passion and dedication are what will drive this business forward, not the opinions of those who wish to see me fail. The applause that followed was deafening. I felt a wave of relief wash over me as I realized I had not only defended my business but had also reclaimed my power. Emily and Mark were left speechless. Their plan to undermine me had failed, and the tide had turned in my favor. As the evening went on, I made it a point to engage with my guests, soaking in their positive energy. I could feel the distance growing between myself and my siblings, and it felt liberating. I had taken a stand, and in doing so, I had protected my dreams from their toxic influence. I was finally in control of my own narrative, and the victory felt sweeter than I could have ever imagined. As the situation unfolded, Emily and Mark were visibly rattled. The confidence I had found in that moment was like a shield, and I could feel the tension in the air as their faces twisted in anger. Instead of showing any remorse for their earlier actions, they turned the blame back on me, their voices rising in a desperate attempt to regain control of the narrative. You ruined everything, Emily screamed, her eyes blazing with fury. Her voice cut through the applause that had just erupted, and I could sense the attendees shifting uncomfortably at her outburst. It was as if she was trying to redirect the attention away from her own failures and project her insecurities onto me. Mark chimed in, his tone dripping with indignation. You're ungrateful. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? There it was, the classic manipulation tactic of the guilt trip. They wanted me to feel responsible for their embarrassment, for the failure of their plan to belittle me in front of my investors. But I was not falling for it this time. I stood my ground, feeling a rush of adrenaline as I faced them. The crowd was watching, and I sensed that they were now on my side. Their attacks only reinforced my resolve. I had exposed their jealousy and manipulation, and the truth had taken root in the minds of those who had come to support me. I knew I had to keep my composure and not let their anger shake me. You think I owe you something because we're family? I shot back, my voice steady and unwavering. You have always seen me as a stepping stone, a doormat for your ambitions. I'm tired of being used. This business is my hard work, my dreams, and I refuse to let anyone, especially not my own siblings, tear that down. Their faces transformed from anger to disbelief, and I could see the wheels turning in their heads. Their attacks were meant to provoke me into a defensive spiral, but instead they had backfired spectacularly. I was standing tall, ready to defend my achievements, and they were left scrambling for words. Emily's frustration boiled over as she struggled to articulate her thoughts. You're acting like you did this all on your own. We were just trying to help you. Her defensiveness was clear, and it only served to highlight her desperation. I could see how uncomfortable she was, feeling the weight of her own failures pressing down on her. Mark, on the other hand, was fuming. His features were twisted in anger, and he attempted to regain control of the room by raising his voice. You think you're better than us now? You think you can just cut us out of your life because you have a little success? His words dripped with hostility, and I could feel the tension crackling in the air. But all I felt was clarity. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction at their inability to manipulate the situation. They were revealing their true colors, and the facade they had built was crumbling right before my eyes. I glanced around at the crowd, seeing nods of agreement from my supporters, and it fueled my determination even more. This is not about me thinking I'm better than anyone. This is about me finally taking control of my life. I've spent years supporting you both while you overshadowed my achievements and mocked my ambitions. I'm done allowing you to define my worth, I declared, my voice rising above the chaos. The investors were watching intently, and I could see the shift in their perception. I was no longer the timid sister they could push around. I had become the strong woman I was meant to be. Emily and Mark were losing ground, and I felt empowered by their visible discomfort. In that moment I realized that this was a turning point not only for my business but for my entire life. I had finally found my voice, and I was not going to let them drown it out any longer. You two want to talk about family? Family should lift each other up, not drag each other down. You've spent years trying to pull me back into your toxic cycle, and I refuse to be a part of it any longer. As I held their gaze, I could see the realization dawn on them. They had underestimated my strength and resilience, thinking they could manipulate me as they always had. But I had evolved, and I had finally learned to stand up for myself. The crowd erupted in applause, and I could feel a wave of support washing over me. Their cheers drowned out the chaos that Emily and Mark were creating, and I knew I had scored a decisive victory. Their fury and accusations only served to highlight my triumph. Emily's face turned crimson as she struggled to regain composure, while Mark was left stammering, unable to articulate a coherent response. They had lost their grip on the situation, and it felt liberating to see their power slip away. I took a deep breath, relishing in the moment. I had faced my fears and stood my ground, and now I was finally free. I didn't need their validation, nor did I owe them anything. I was carving my own path, and I was determined to walk it without their shadow hanging over me. As the applause continued, I felt a sense of peace settle within me. I was no longer bound by the chains of their manipulation. I was done playing their games, and I was ready to embrace my new reality. I had reclaimed my power, and I was excited about the journey ahead. The launch party ended in chaos for Emily and Mark. As the echoes of applause faded and the investors began to murmur among themselves, I could see the reality of the situation hit them hard. Their plan to humiliate me had backfired spectacularly, and the very audience they had tried to sway was now questioning their integrity. I noticed a few guests casting sideways glances at them, eyebrows raised in disbelief at their earlier behavior. It felt good to witness their reputations take a hit, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction at their downfall. I stood at the center of the gathering, soaking in the newfound support of my guests. The momentum had shifted in my favor, and I finally felt liberated from the toxic grip my siblings had on my life. It was as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and for the first time in years, I felt free to breathe, free to be myself without the shadow of their negativity looming over me. Emily and Mark were scrambling to regain their composure. I could see the anger boiling beneath the surface as they exchanged furious glances, trying to figure out how to salvage their pride. They were used to being the dominant voices in the family, and now that I had openly challenged them, they were left vulnerable and exposed. It was a sight I would never grow tired of witnessing. I could hear snippets of conversation around me, my supporters echoing sentiments of disbelief about how my siblings had treated me. "Can you believe how they acted?" one investor whispered to another, shaking his head in disbelief. "It's shocking to see such behavior from family members during a launch like this." Their words reinforced my decision to distance myself from Emily and Mark. They were not just harmful to me, they were toxic to anyone who encountered their arrogance. As the party continued, I engaged with my guests, reveling in their positive energy. I shared stories about the hard work I had put into the business, the challenges I had overcome, and the exciting plans I had for the future. The more I spoke, the more I realized how far I had come. I was no longer the timid sister standing in the shadows. I was a successful entrepreneur, and I had every right to celebrate that achievement. Meanwhile, Emily and Mark were off to the side, whispering heatedly to each other. I caught snippets of their conversation, their frustration evident as they tried to manage the fallout from their failed scheme. "This isn't over, Sarah. You'll regret this," Emily hissed under her breath, her eyes narrowing at me. But I wasn't afraid of their threats anymore. I had stood up to them, and I wasn't going to let their intimidation tactics work on me any longer. I could see the discomfort they were causing to the guests who had gathered to celebrate my success. They were no longer the charming siblings who could manipulate the narrative. They were the ones who had shown their true colors, and it was clear to everyone. I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me, knowing that I had taken a stand and protected my hard work from their jealousy. As the evening wore on, I mingled with my guests, sharing laughs and excitement about the future of my business. I felt a genuine connection with those who supported me, and it was refreshing to be surrounded by people who believed in my vision. The contrast between my supporters and my siblings was stark, and for the first time, I truly appreciated the importance of surrounding myself with positive influences. Emily and Mark continued to sulk in the corner, their anger palpable. I could see them trying to manipulate a few other guests, but their efforts fell flat as people began to distance themselves from their negativity. I heard one investor say, "I don't like the way they treated Sarah. It's not right to undermine someone's hard work, especially family." Their plan to turn the tide had completely failed, and I savored every moment of it. As the night progressed, I found myself reflecting on how much I had changed. I had spent so many years allowing Emily and Mark to dictate my worth, and now I was finally breaking free. I was no longer the person who would accept their gaslighting and manipulation. I had reclaimed my power, and it felt incredible. As the party came to a close, I made my way to the exit, feeling a sense of accomplishment wash over me. I glanced back at Emily and Mark one last time, their faces twisted in resentment. I realized in that moment that I had unburdened myself from their toxic influence, and it brought me immense peace. I was ready to embrace my new life, filled with opportunities and the support of those who truly cared about me. I stepped outside, the fresh air hitting my face like a rejuvenating breath. I smiled, knowing that I had made the right decision to stand up for myself. I had faced my fears and emerged victorious. No more would I allow their negativity to seep into my life. I was free, and I intended to thrive without their influence. The night sky was clear, stars twinkling overhead, and I felt a sense of hope for the future. I was excited about my business and the journey ahead. I had established my boundaries, and I was determined to protect my dreams. I had found my voice, and I wasn't going to let anyone silence it again. My heart swelled with pride as I realized that I had not only defended my business, but had also reclaimed my life. Emily and Mark could try to manipulate others, but I was done being a pawn in their game. In the aftermath of the launch party, I found myself thriving in a way I had never experienced before. With Emily and Mark's toxic negativity out of my life, I could finally focus on what truly mattered, my business and my happiness. I poured my energy into growing my brand, and it paid off. Within months, my business was flourishing, and the support I received from friends and new colleagues was overwhelming. I was no longer the timid sister overshadowed by her siblings. I was a successful entrepreneur, proud of my accomplishments. I moved into a cozy apartment that I decorated to reflect my personality, filled with laughter and light. I had finally created a space that felt like home, free from the burden of my past. I often hosted small gatherings with friends, celebrating milestones and sharing dreams. The laughter echoed through my walls, and I felt a deep sense of belonging that I had longed for. Meanwhile, Emily and Mark continued to gossip about me from a distance, but their words no longer held any power over me. I had learned to embrace the peace I found in their absence. I didn't need their validation or approval. I was living my life on my own terms. Whenever I heard rumors about them trying to undermine my success, I simply smiled to myself. Their attempts to drag me back into their toxic spiral were futile. I had discovered the importance of surrounding myself with supportive, positive people who uplifted me. I was no longer willing to settle for less, and the distance I had created from my siblings brought me the tranquility I had craved. I felt empowered, knowing that I had reclaimed my autonomy and self-worth. I was finally free to pursue my dreams without the shadow of their negativity looming over me. My victory lay not just in my business success but in the peace I had found within myself.